Hey, folks, welcome to the Peach Pundit Podcast. I'm Jason Pye, joined as always by Scott Turner and Buzz Brockway. Guys.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Gentlemen.
We are on a new platform that Scott has turned us on to because he bitches about Zoom and how it produces bad recordings. So here we are trying something new because Scott's a diva.
I care about the quality of our audio for the benefit of our listeners.
Well, look, one listener told me that he appreciated the lack of audio quality and professionalism of our podcast. That's what he liked most about it.
Yeah, it makes us look DIY. It makes us look punk rock, which I am all for. But Scott, in his divaness, is that a word? Anyway, look, so moving along.
I have pride in what I do. That's all. That's all this is about. Is I have a little bit of pride, and I have to stoke that fire.
Oh my God!
Don't crush my dreams, Jason Pye.
I'll do what I want.
Don't tell me what I want.
Of course you will.
So, in case you guys haven't heard, there's a new book on Georgia politics that was released, I think, just yesterday. It is our friend Greg Bluestein. His new book, Flipped: How Georgia Turned Purple and Broke the Monopoly on Republican Power. It was released on Amazon.com and in bookstores across the country, if there are still bookstores left.
Somewhere in America, there still are.
I texted Bluestein the other day and I said, I'm going to buy one. He's like, you better. I'm actually going to buy two. One's going to be for a giveaway for the podcast. So for those of you who are listening, I have not yet discussed with Buzz and Scott how this is going to play out, but eventually we're going to give away a copy, potentially signed. I just got to be in Georgia one day to actually get it signed by Bluestein. So
I could probably make that happen easier than you could.
Probably could, but
see him all the time.
Yeah, but this everybody on Twitter has been tweeting their pictures of it. Greg's been retweeting them all. So congratulations to Greg.
Yeah,
I know this has been a big last 3 or 4 months for you, but I'm actually really looking forward to reading this book when I finally get around to ordering it.
Yeah,
Scott, Buzz, comments, thoughts.
Yeah, I used my Audible credit for the month and downloaded Greg's book. Look forward to listening to it and seeing what he has to say about that crazy election in 2020.
Well, apparently there's a passage in there about Blair Erskine, who he credits with helping turn Georgia purple. The three of us did not even know who she was.
She tweeted at us. She tweeted at us. We haven't even talked about this yet.
No,
like it was before the last podcast. She actually tweeted at us, and it looks like it was like all of our jokes were taken in good humor. She sounds like she actually read or listened to the podcast. So that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would be intrigued just to read that. Somebody posted a story from the Loeffler campaign, a couple paragraphs, something about a Mao painting getting hung in the Loeffler office that they stole from the Collins campaign or something. There are crazy things that I keep telling everybody this, you guys included, our audience. There are a few things that are more entertaining than Georgia politics. So for Greg Bluestein to write a book about Georgia politics, I'm sure it's going to be a page-turning classic because the source material is fantastic.
Yes.
So, it's kind of like hitting with a corked bat in baseball. Your source material is really going to carry you through on this.
And just to for those of you who don't know this, so March 3rd, we recorded that podcast on February 25th, where he mentioned Blair Erskine. And she responded to us on March 3rd, writing, "Love this so much, guys! ! I'll share. Heart. Thanks."
Hey, I wish
it was the podcast where we're like, "Who the hell is Blair Erskine?"
I wish I thought of it at the time, but I should have retweeted her and said, "Hey, when she becomes governor of Georgia, I hope she needs to invite us to the governor's mansion."
Yeah,
we'll do a live. We'll do Blair Erskine. If you're watching this, if you've become a subscriber on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube or Facebook, where you can find all of the wonderful Peach Pundit podcast content, as well as peachpundit.com. We invite you on when you get elected in the governor's mansion. We'll do a live podcast with you from the governor's mansion. Or, hell, we'll even do it the next couple weeks if you want to. So just, call us. So moving on to more serious subjects. We've talked a lot about mental health on the podcast over the last several weeks, and one thing that's really frustrating me is we know that House Bill 1013 is running through the legislature, already passed the House, 3 no votes against it. Seemed like it was heading to passage. Unfortunately, it's ran into some opposition, and it seems there's a lot of, dare I say, misleading stuff that's out there about the bill. And I actually caught someone I know yesterday who tweeted about it. And he's formerly with a national conservative group, and he was basically cheering, hoping that it goes down. I think the three of us, three of us understand, because of what we've done in the you guys have been in the legislature. I'm a lobbyist, and no piece of legislation is perfect.
Right.
There are always going to be drawbacks to legislation, but if you're advancing the ball, you're getting a little bit of what you want or a lot of what you want, and there's a little bit of bad in there, you still roll with it.
Yep.
But this opposition, some of the things I'm seeing, they're calling it Marxist, socialist, that it allows
a massive expansion of government.
Massive expansion of government. It allows the government to collect data on your mental health. Could infringe upon your Second Amendment rights. There's a lot of misinformation about there, and I was hoping you guys could correct the record, or at least tell us a little bit more about what they're saying and why they're getting it wrong, or where they're getting it right, or whatever the case may be. So, Scott, I'll let you go first here.
Well, the first and foremost, what we need to address is that when a legislator votes their conscience and they vote against a piece of legislation, they're not attacking anybody.
Right.
And so you had 3 no votes on this bill. They voted no, and they stated their policy objections. They did not question anybody's character, and they did not set out upon a path that would lead them towards attacking the character of anybody that voted for it. They very clearly, there are 3 of them that voted no. A couple of others said later that had they been in the chamber, they would have voted no as well. So, including Timmy Barr, who's running for Congress in the Congressional 10. So that's to set the stage. There are some legislators who voted for this who are getting attacked back home by these people who are willing to spread misinformation. Yeah. And they say everything from it protects pedophiles, it makes pedophiles or pedophilia a mental condition as opposed to a crime. That's not true. First and foremost, just stuff that's not true. Crazy Pizzagate-like stuff that isn't true, right? And if you're listening to this and you think Pizzagate's a real thing, I'm sorry I didn't get through to you. But you have legislators who are well-intentioned people. I know these people. Buzz knows these people. Jason knows these people. We know they're our friends. And some of them didn't agree with everything in the bill, but they see what they're trying to do. And in order for a bill to go through the process, now I voted against a lot of bills, right? And so I probably would have voted against this one for specific things. It doesn't mean that I'll vote against the final version of the bill, but it's an objection to – you're putting yourself on the record as saying, I have objections to this on a policy basis. Now, people have used the no voters, the people who voted no, to be the scapegoat for the negative misinformation campaign that's happening. Our favorite Alabama cheerleader is out there spreading all kinds of rumors about this. And among the things that she says is she calls it a woke, right, truth and education. She calls it the woke mental health bill. And one of the South Georgia members got called a pedophilia defender because of this, and he took it very personally. And he wasn't the only one, and he had every right to take it personally. But he kind of reacted towards the people who voted no, and that's not. I have been on the same side of issues as the Alabama cheerleader, and I've been opposed to her. And everybody in the chamber has been on the same side with her, and they've been opposed to her. And she has made threats to every single person who was opposed to her at one point or another. At one point, this lady moved to the Speaker of the House's district to campaign against him. And just last year, she was in his office taking photos about how they'd kissed and made up. And this year, she's saying he's got the woke mental health bill. You cannot trust what this person is telling you.
If there's anyone who could benefit from this bill, it's the Alabama cheerleader.
Well, yeah. And so there are a whole bunch of crazy things that are being said about it, And Jason, can we go through them real quick?
Roll Tide.
I know I've taken up a lot of time.
By all means.
So one of them is that HB 1013 will allow a police will allow police accompanied by a peace officer to take people into custody before they commit a crime. Simply not there.
Right.
It's not in the bill. There's no line in there at all.
And I
Behavioral health challenges are not criminalized.
When you're ready,
yeah,
Scott.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in a program called Leadership Gwinnett, and a couple weeks ago we heard from people high up in the Gwinnett County Police Force, and they were talking about this bill, how they hoped it passed into law because it included this provision that you're referencing. And what Gwinnett County does, and what a lot of big police forces do, is they have mental health professionals with them because, like it or not, our police get calls about everything weird that happens in your neighborhood. The police get calls about, and in a county like Gwinnett, that includes all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right, Scott. They do not, they do not arrest people. And I haven't read every line of this legislation, but I've skimmed over it. I didn't see anything in there that increased the number of people who would get arrested, and certainly not people getting arrested before they commit a crime. But police forces are recognizing that they are dealing with people who are experiencing mental health problems, and how do you, rather than take them to jail, how do we help these folks get help to stave off something terrible happening? Which can happen in certain instances when somebody's having a mental health, experiencing a mental health breakdown, that can lead to very tragic incidents. So and this is what the police officers were saying. If we come in and there's a domestic dispute and it appears to us that, for example, that that one of the couple is experiencing a mental issue and they haven't laid a finger on anything, there's nothing the police officer can do.
Exactly. And so,
but they need mental health help.
In order for a police officer today, without this bill becoming law, in order for a police officer to help that person and get them mental assistance, he has to arrest them and charge them with a crime or arrest them under a crime. And this removes that requirement.
Right.
This will actually allow police officers to take people to a hospital as opposed to arresting them. And so when the claim is made that it will allow police officers to take them into custody, they do that today. This actually keeps them from having to put them in custody and actually gets them the help that they need.
And one thing I'd add is that arrest is a bigger deal than people realize because when you arrest someone, that means they have a criminal record.
Yep.
Even if they're never convicted, it is on their record. It's something they may have to explain to an employer at some point in the future. That is obviously not something we want. So if it's just a simple, well, not simple, there's no such thing as a simple mental health issue.
Right.
But if it's a mental health issue as opposed to criminality, we want to get it addressed through the proper channels. And one of the proper channels would be a mental health professional, not law enforcement.
Yeah.
We ask law enforcement to do way too much.
Yeah. And I think people should understand this is very different than what some on the far left had pushed about saying we're going to replace our police force with social workers. This is none of that. This is just giving police officers additional resources to deal with situations that they deal with on a routine basis, especially in a big metro area like Atlanta. But they're dealing with it in rural parts of the state too, right? I mean, police officers are dealing with this stuff. This gives them additional resources to help their community better, not so they can go arrest more people.
Right. And so I'll go one more with a really crazy, two more. The first is it gives control of covered disorders to the WHO and DSM-5. They're removing the reference to WHO. WHO's already in Georgia code, by the way, the WHO, World Health Organization. It's already in code. It was put there in 1981. So they're going to remove that in the next version. But DSM-5 references and puts definitions and diagnoses around mental health conditions. Mm-hmm. And that's already in code today. It's just a really outdated version. They're going to update it. So that's one of the criticisms. And the second one I'll cover really quickly because it's kind of outrageous. Is it says it did not provide a religious exemption and will make taxpayers pay for such things as gender reassignment surgery and counseling for pedophiles. All right. So there's nothing in the bill that mandates payment for gender reassignment surgery. As a matter of fact, in Georgia, Medicaid programs do not cover gender reassignment surgery, and the ACLU has sued Georgia because of that. And we're not going to start doing that under this bill. There's nothing in the bill that says that, but that's one of the tropes that has been propagated through propaganda to people to stir up opposition.
Yeah.
Look, some of these people are well-intentioned. The opposition people, they probably do believe that this is all in there. It's just not, right? I mean, you can say that you believe the sky is purple, and you think the sky is purple, and you believe that. And you're being honest to yourself because that's what you think, and you think everybody else is wrong. Everybody else looks at the sky and they say, well, that's blue. The reality is it's blue, whether you believe it or not. You believe a bunch of stuff that's not true about this bill, right? There are some things in there that policy-wise that probably need to be tweaked to make better and tied down, and they're working on that. But please do this, okay? If you want to be an effective advocate, if you want to continue to have leverage in the future when you can have a reasonable conversation with your lawmaker, don't call them up and tell them they're protecting pedophiles. Don't do that.
Yeah.
What you cost yourself is credibility for any future issue when there actually is a problem, because you are setting the stage for, oh gosh, here's crazy Scott, here's crazy Buzz, here's crazy Jason. I don't really want to have a conversation with them, and they're going to say, okay, bye-bye,
yeah,
and they're going to ignore you when you actually have something that you actually do have a legitimate beef with.
Yeah, as I started reading the bill, I saw, in the definitions, and it referenced the American Psychiatric Association and the World Health Organization, in the definitions, saying that mental health shall be defined as what those organizations say that mental health means. And so, I guess I'm assuming, I got this, actually, my mother was given this document at a meeting she was at, and it describes all of the, some of the things you outlined, Scott, and a whole bunch of other things. But the tone is the same, Scott, that, as you mentioned, that it's going to allow all sorts of horrible things to happen in the state of Georgia. And I guess, my assumption is that people are looking at, perhaps controversial stances that the World Health Organization or the American Psychiatric Association or certain members of those organizations have taken, and you kind of take 2 + 2 and get 8, and just assume that, okay, well, that means the worst possible thing that anybody in those organizations might have ever said is now law in the state of Georgia, and your children are at risk, and all of this sorts of stuff. And that's all. That's pretty common. I mean, we all saw that in the legislature. That happens. What really angers me about all of this is what you mentioned before. The Alabama cheerleader, not just saying, "Hey, we have questions about this bill. We have objections to this bill. Why is this in there?" And some of this, I think, is fueled by a lack of understanding on how to read a piece of legislation. And I don't blame members of the general public for that. I do blame people, and I don't know who's behind this organization. I don't know the people. I looked at their website. I knew one of those people, but I don't know what their expertise in education is or what their expertise in mental health is. But they've set themselves up as experts, and they're passing around this document, and people are, without checking their credibility or anything, are just believing it. So,
but it's QAnon level type stuff.
No, it is, but it's also the words Marxist and socialism are. Hold on a second.
Well, while he's doing that, what I object to is Debbie Dooley trying to make political hay out of this, and this guy Patrick Witt, who's suddenly running with Trump's endorsement for insurance commissioner, more or less accusing John King of wanting to push pedophilia and agreeing with all of these horrible things. It's ludicrous, and it's making politics work. This is why politics sucks, because people do this stuff.
This is the Black Book of Communism. It goes through and documents the atrocities committed by communist regimes all over the world, going back to the early 20th century.
Also known as Jason's Ambition Book.
This is the Tiananmen Papers. It talks about basically Tiananmen Square and the protest that was put down in the late 1980s. This is Harvest of Sorrow, which talks about Soviet collectivization. We're literally in the process of watching Ukraine be destroyed by Russia. This is not the first time Ukraine has been destroyed by Russia. There was a famine that killed millions of people in Ukraine back in the early 20th century. You cheapen it. You cheapen it by using those terms about which you know nothing.
Yeah.
And communism actually means something. The monument to the victims of the Ukrainian famine that was created by Russian collectivization of agriculture is a mile and a half from here. You cheapen their deaths by saying stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yes, I don't like socialism either. I hate Marxism. But the words have meaning. And when you go out there and make stupid claims like this about something with which people have real issues, including myself, it's laughably absurd, and frankly, you should be ashamed of yourselves.
You know, I don't
Amen.
give the Speaker of the House a lot of credit on a lot of things, right? And in this, he's trying really hard to solve one of the major issues affecting people in our state on a day-to-day basis. While I was still in office, my sheriff told me I've become the mental health bed ward for this county. And so many of his prisoners in the county jail are really in search of this type of help.
Yeah.
And so if you have solutions, bring them. The legislators will listen to it. Mm-hmm. I promise you, they'll listen to constructive criticism. They're taking some of the feedback now, and they're taking the WHO out of the bill, for example. If you have constructive feedback, you can be part of the process.
Yeah.
If you scream and yell and stamp your feet, you're not going to get anything done. They're going to pass bills anyway. You have an opportunity to be productive. Be productive.
And
Stop
how
this
many?
foolishness.
And let's take a shot at Alabama cheerleader, because she takes shots at me all the time. How many times has she threatened to defeat every member of the legislature or broad swaths of people?
There's nobody left.
And it never happens.
There's nobody left. She told Philip Singleton, who voted against this bill, that she would make sure he was never going to be reelected to any position ever again.
And he got
And
reelected,
now she's
right?
sending emails about how awesome he is.
Right.
There's nobody in the legislature today that has not heard from Debbie Dooley at some point. I'm going to work real hard to make sure you're never elected again. There's nobody left.
Moving along, because I'm about to say something I'm going to regret. Actually, I won't regret it. It just might get me into trouble. The Georgia Republican Party has questions on the ballot during the May primary, and some of these are very loaded questions. I'll read through them. I'll read through them real quick. The question number one: the Biden administration has stopped building the border wall, and illegal border crossings have dramatically increased. Should securing our border be a national priority? That's number one. Education.
Answer: duh.
Actually, I couldn't find the data, but I actually want to. I really want to fact check that on my own, because the Customs and Border Patrol actually publishes that data. So I want to look it up, and I haven't had a chance to yet. Education is the largest line item in the state budget. Should education dollars follow the student to the school that best fits their need, whether it's public, private, magnet, charter, virtual, or homeschool? Florida has passed a law to stop social media platforms from influencing political campaigns by censoring candidates. Should Georgia pass such a law to protect free speech in political campaigns? 2 of the 3 current federal work visa programs are lottery-based. Should issuance of federal work visas instead be based on job skills? Biological males who identify as females have begun competing in female sports. Should schools in Georgia allow biological males to compete in female sports? Make sure you guys are writing these down, because I want to go through and discuss the ones we want to discuss. To prevent ballot tampering, state law prohibits To prevent ballot tampering, state law prohibits political operatives from handling absentee ballots once they've been marked by a voter. To protect the integrity of our elections, should the enforcement of laws against ballot tampering be a priority? There are only 2 more left, I promise. Absentee drop boxes are vulnerable to illegal ballot trafficking. Should absentee ballot drop boxes be eliminated? And finally, crime has dramatically increased throughout the country, including at our capital city of Atlanta. Should the citizens of residential areas like the Buckhead community of Atlanta be allowed to vote to create their own city governments and police departments? Before we jump into these, Scott, you look so tired because I sat here and read them all.
I'm sorry, what?
Kiss my ass. I do want to note that while there was a 5% increase in violent crime in 2020, the total crime index actually went down.
Not in Atlanta.
I didn't say in Atlanta. Well,
I think the ballot question was about Atlanta.
Actually, what it says is crime has increased dramatically throughout the country. Just for contextualizing it, when you say something like that, you're bound to get fact checked. And as I said, violent crime has increased by 5%. Homicides are up dramatically. Yes, 29%. Sure. But 5%, and then the total crime index has gone down.
Yes.
With that said, I'll also note that the Bureau of Justice Statistics National Criminal Victimization Survey showed a 22% decline in violent crime.
Yes.
Just pointing that out. But each of you guys, I'm sure have things you want to discuss here. So let's dive into these questions. Buzz, did any of these stand out to you in particular?
The only one I care about is number 2. It's about education. About should the money follow the child? It's been on these ballots. It's been a Republican Party question numerous times before, and I'm glad they put that one on there because I think we'll see an increase over what we've seen before, and it will prove once again to the legislatures that their constituents want this and they ought to vote for it. But the others, I think, they're questions where you can already predict what the outcome is going to be among Republican voters.
Right. TLDR, don't care, moving on.
Yeah.
That's me. I get in the ballot box on that. I'm not answering those questions.
Vote for number 2.
I'm more
and skip
interested in making
others.
sure. I'm going to be making sure that Chris Carr and Brian Kemp have my X next to their name, and then when I get my printed ballot, double and triple and quadrupling checking to make sure that those two guys have a check by their name. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Make sure
I'm not going to be answering
guy
this
didn't steal
long
your
list
vote.
of questions. Right. I'm going to make sure that these stupid ballot marking devices actually did what I told it to do, which is what every voter should do.
But
you can take time answering those questions if you want.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with these kind of questions, you're trying to get you're trying to get simple answers to very complicated problems.
Right. The Buckhead City thing is a great example.
Yeah. Sure. Exactly. Fundamentally, at every time I voted for every cityhood proposal that came before the Governmental Affairs Committee, I voted for it. I believe in the citizens' right to make that choice. But it's a much more complicated issue that the voters of that area might have to decide. So.
We didn't vote for Greenhaven.
Ballot drop boxes are already let's see, not the one before that, prevent ballot tampering. That's referencing ballot harvesting, which was made illegal by SB 202. So I don't know why that one exists.
There is a movement to eliminate drop boxes, and that's what it's referring to.
No, the one before that
about
ballot harvesting. That's illegal now under Georgia law.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how many biological males who identify as females are trying to compete in Georgia sports. Did you see? I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday. The governor out in Utah vetoed a bill because there was only one biological male in the entire state who was trying to compete in girls' sports.
Yeah.
His veto is going to get overridden because it's the hot thing that the conservative the movement is like really talking about now. But yeah. It's frustrating.
The problem is when you take opportunities away from women to make room for a male in women's sports, and that's it's a tough issue. I'm glad I'm not in the legislature, but I see why it is an issue.
No,
and Leah Thomas coming to Georgia and winning the national championship for the 500 meter it happened here.
Yeah,
and so you can't say it's not happening here.
I'm not saying that what happened.
She's not a Georgia athlete, though.
She's not a Georgia athlete. She's not a Georgia athlete. 1, 2.
She competed against Georgians who are women.
Fine, but that's up to the governing body of the swimming or whatever specific sport that is. I don't know. It's some swimming association,
swimming,
I'm sure.
Actually. Yeah, USA Swimming.
Yeah. I knew it was swimming, but I couldn't remember. I don't know the name of the governing body. But my point to all this is, while I agree that women's sports should be left to biological females, It really seems like this is overkill, and I say that frankly, I'm tired of the culture wars. I'm so tired of them.
Sure.
And I realize that the left is doing a lot to push it, but the right, they're pushing back. They're pushing back so hard in the other direction that they look like it's coming up in the SCOTUS hearings, and we can talk about that later. But it's been really frustrating. So
yeah, I think the only thing I'll say about this is that. You can simultaneously believe, as I do, that it's fundamentally unfair for a person who went through puberty and has all sorts of physical advantages. No amount of hormones of hormone treatment is going to change that. That may be unfair competition, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a law needs to be passed. I think if you read articles about the NCAA competition, which took place at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, where Leah Thomas of I believe of University of Pennsylvania, Penn, won several races, setting records, beating women who were Olympic silver medalists and Olympic competitor. Nobody, the people are not standing up, and people who are in attendance are not standing up and cheering Leah Thomas, and that's an unfortunate thing for that person because she's not being welcomed in this, and that's if we're concerned about mental health, which is why a lot of advocates say that transgender people need to be allowed to compete against women, that being booed and stuff in front of a large crowd causes mental health. So I guess what I'm saying all that to say is just because an injustice is happening, it doesn't need to be a law needs to be passed, because I think society is going to figure out an answer to this question pretty soon.
Yeah. So, guys, you're getting a tax rebate.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys...
I'm getting my money back.
You're getting your money back.
And money that was not printed or borrowed from China, but money that I actually paid into the system with real dollars.
Yes.
Right?
We'll get to that in a second, Scott. I promise. So
give it to me.
Hold on a second. I have to pull up the tweet because I didn't do this in advance. Governor Kim signed the state budget into law today, which we have a historic budget surplus because of higher than expected revenues. So within the next 6 to 8 weeks, a $1.1 billion refund tax rebate plan will be signed into law, or will be coming. Excuse me, $1.1 billion in tax rebates will be coming to taxpayers. This is something about which to be happy, I would think. I mean, I owe tax money to the government for the first time in 10 years this year, and I'm really not thrilled about that. But
I'm going to go buy myself a pair of cowboy boots. That's what I'm going to do. I'm stoked.
All right. Scott's going to stimulate the economy already.
Absolutely. Cavender's Horsetown, I'm coming for you.
I bought the 2 new pairs of shoes the other day that totaled $100. I have a friend of mine who spends like $180 on like a new pair of Nikes, and I'm like, well, I found a pair of Asics for like $60, and then I found a pair of Etnies skateboard shoes for like another $60, so it's $120. And so I have 2 new pairs of shoes coming to me. I can't imagine dropping like probably $200 on a pair of cowboy boots.
See, I told my wife
like $400 or $500.
How much?
$400 or $500.
See, yeah, my wife would not go for that. She already told me. I was showing her some of the new Trey Young shoes that Adidas is selling, and they're selling for $140, $160, $180.
I could see you with a pair of Trey Youngs.
She said no. She said it's not going to happen. So I don't know. I mean,
well, take your $250 and go buy them, man.
Yeah, I might have to do that.
The Georgia legislature. Look, this is the reason why this happened. More seriously, the reason why this happened is because we have a state where we've cut the income tax rate. This year, it's going to go from 5.5 to 5.25 after that bill gets signed into law. So we keep cutting the income tax rate. Jobs keep getting created. People are paying more taxes because the economy is on fire. We have the lowest unemployment rate in our history, or near it at this point. and the economy's on fire. That's all because Governor Kemp kept us open when other states were closed, and people have flocked here, and they've taken advantage of our freedoms and liberties that it didn't have back home in whatever state they came from.
Yeah.
And as a result, we had $1 billion surplus. Now, a lot of governors would have figured out a way to spend that money.
Yes.
They would have raised employee taxes, state employee taxes. They would have socked it away in the rainy day fund. They would have found a pet project, like, I don't know, maybe go fish, and they would have porked the hell out of that money.
Hey, look, in fairness to Go Fish, it didn't cost $1 billion, okay?
And they would have funded various halls of fame around the state of Georgia. That could easily
there would have been Terry England's local high school would have had band uniforms for the rest of their lives with this money. But you have a conservative governor. I'm kidding about Terry. Terry would never do that. Some other appropriations chairman would, though, because band uniforms used to be in the state budget.
Yes, they did.
But they're not anymore because we have Republican leadership. Thank you. You're welcome. But the bottom line is we're going to get our own money back because we have a conservative governor. This is not printed money. This is not borrowed money. This was excess taxes that were collected under our current tax structure, and they decided, well, you know what? The fair thing to do is to give the money back to the people who it actually belongs to because we don't really have a reasonable use for it.
Yep.
So here you go.
Here.
And so everybody's getting $250 back, $500 if you're a married couple, more if you're head of household, single.
$375, I think, if you're a head of household. Yep.
Right.
This is something like I said, I think about which that most of us are going to be pretty happy,
except for one person. David Perdue.
Well, of course, he's got to be contrarian about every damn thing, right?
He doesn't need the money.
So today, no, he doesn't need the money.
Hey, David, I could use a second pair of cowboy boots. You can give me your $500.
By the way, I've never spent more than $100 on a pair of shoes.
Me neither. This will be my first time ever.
So there's always a first time, Scott.
Yes, there is.
Today, March 23rd, 2023, in the year of our Allah, at 4:24 p.m.
Stop it. Crazy. We're losing our audience members every time.
At 4:24 p.m., David Perdue, Republican candidate for governor against an incumbent Governor Brian Kemp, tweeted, and I quote, "A one-time giveaway that hits right before the primary election from a governor who's opposed to eliminating the state income tax. Call it what it is, a desperate attempt to get votes."
Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for him.
Well, I have a bone to pick with you because I recall literally before Christmas that Donald Trump kept making appeals to the then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to support $2,000 per taxpayer stimulus checks. Obviously, based on income taxes, if they phased out at certain income thresholds, and eventually, it's like lowering down. I think $75,000 was the gross or the adjusted income tax threshold. Mm-hmm. Eventually, you got nothing.
Yes.
So, do you know who supported this plan for $2,000 stimulus checks? That was
me. Call him me.
I don't like calling on the teacher's pet, so I'm going to go with Buzz here. Buzz, do you want to take a guess who that was?
Maybe his name rhymes with David Perdue?
that
rhymes with, right.
That is correct, my friend. So to be fair, so did Kelly Loeffler, who I know Scott was in love with during the campaign. And they were both up for re-election and facing tough competitive races. But yes, both David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler supported $2,000 checks for taxpayers. Literally, this Politico article came out on, let's see here, December 29th, which was roughly a week before they faced voters. So tell me, David Perdue, who is trying to buy votes? Or who? Yeah.
So it didn't work for you at the $2,000 level. So is it going to work for Kemp at the $500 level? Look, man, this is crazy. Like, David Perdue didn't write that tweet. It was some campaign staffer who was
care.
like, "Ooh, I know. We'll be contrarian about taxpayers getting their money back."
Yeah.
And In the process, we'll stick the finger in the eye of every single Republican legislator who voted for this thing and generate a ton of goodwill with legislators across the state.
Right.
By saying that they passed a gimmick meant to buy votes.
And let's also talk about your plan to eliminate the state income tax. I'm actually supportive of the concept. I truly am. But I also realize there are obstacles to this. One of those is you're going to have to repeal the grocery tax.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, the exemption on groceries.
Correct.
So if you like, that's
and services.
It's yeah. So how are you going to explain that to families who are struggling to make ends meet right now at a time of high inflation? How are you going to explain that? Also, speaking of high inflation, wouldn't your $2,000 per $2,000 check actually exacerbated the problem?
It did. It absolutely did. And it wasn't real money. It was printed money or it was borrowed money.
From
China. From China. So you have this situation where you're criticizing the governor for giving me my money back, and then you tried to buy my vote by printing money or borrowing it from China, which my children or their children's children would have to pay back. This is an apples and oranges scenario where you were far more hypocritical and trying to buy votes and dangerous in your impact on the economy than what the governor's doing here. At least it's real dollars. At least it was money that I have already paid into the system. The money that you wanted to give us, it wasn't real.
Yeah.
It just didn't exist. It had to come from somewhere, and you made it up.
Yeah. It's go ahead, Buzz.
No, I was going to say it's to attack this is, I mean, I suppose he can't come out and cheer it because that's cheering Brian Kemp, but so he has to attack it, and it's stupid. It's stupid political games that people play during elections, and
bold strategy, Cotton.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right, David Perdue? Like that didn't pan out that way the first time,
right,
against John Ossoff, because I actually watched him question Supreme Court nominee today before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Didn't see David Perdue doing that.
Ching.
Yeah. So I have not seen this yet, but apparently Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan's GOP 2.0 has begun running ads. Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, I'm not part of the GOP 2.0 movement. Buzz is, though. Aren't you, Buzz? Why don't you tell him?
Yeah.
Why do I have to tell him?
Full disclosure, I'm on Geoff Duncan's board. Geoff Duncan has decided to run an ad. He's trying to stir up support for GOP 2.0 and trying to get Republican voters to realize that instead of looking back to the past, we need to look to the future and articulate a conservative message. It's only going to run for a short time. He's not trying to get in the way of other ads that will be coming down the pike very soon, and that's it. I mean, that's what he's trying to do, and we'll see how it lands.
I do like Geoff. I still consider him a friend. I feel like this has a huge amount of backfire potential, which I've told the both of you, and I know you don't necessarily agree with me. But I think
don't necessarily
Geoff
agree with you.
We
won't drag Jason
Geoff
into this.
Geoff being prominently the only speaker in that ad, prominently displayed. With the average Georgia Republican voter right now, he's about as popular as Brad Raffensperger. So I don't know that he's the proper messenger at this point in time. Maybe with some time to heal some wounds, and maybe we get through November and we have a kumbaya moment, the party starts coming back together. But Geoff being the messenger right now for that, I think the audience that you're trying to get is already with you. And so you're not growing your audience. You are preaching to the choir, and you had a little bit of an echo chamber effect going on. And it's all about Geoff. And the movement isn't clearly defined. I understand about tone, and I know there's a book, but the average person isn't going to buy it, and they're not going to read it, and they're not going to understand what GOP 2.0 looks like. It sounds like to the average outsider who isn't in this type of circle, who isn't really active in politics, that they're trying to start a third party. And that's what, and is there value in that? Well, I mean, we can debate that. But right now, we're in the middle of trying to get Brian Kemp reelected, and even though you're talking about you're talking about moving on, you are talking about the things in the past as well. And so you're keeping that alive, and I think it has the potential to hamper the Kemp campaign, because Kemp and Duncan have been tied together a lot since they first ran together. And the backfire potential is just really, really high. And I think it's a little bit dangerous to be doing that at this point. If you had waited 6 months from now and started that, okay.
Let me jump in here and say that you have to look at the past to move forward, and you have to look at the mistakes that were made, particularly from 2015 through January 6th of 2021, and try to figure out ways it won't happen again. And I'm not suggesting that steps be taken to prohibit Donald Trump from running for office again, but unless they find criminal activity, in which case prosecute the hell out of them. But I will say that I think you have to talk about those things that happen in order to set up a place where the Republican Party, or any party for that matter, can be successful. And I would even say the same if looking at progressives in the Democratic Party and how moderates are being wiped out just as much as moderates are being wiped out on the Republican side. Today we're seeing conservatives, rank and file conservatives. 10 years ago, Mike Pence was a conservative firebrand who was a chairman of the Republican Study Committee before that, 15 years ago or so. He was looked to as a leader of conservatism on the Hill, even more so or just as much as someone like Paul Ryan was at the time. Mm-hmm. And now he's a pariah because the Republican Party has been, by and large, taken over by Donald Trump and his ilk. And you have to start re-educating voters, particularly Republican voters, on what the Republican Party is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about a cult of personality around one man. It's supposed to be about limited government, the Constitution, and so on and so forth. And the Republican Party is not about that anymore. It is to certain people. It is to you, Scott. It is to you, Buzz. Yeah. But it's not to me. I mean, as someone who has voted predominantly Republican or Libertarian when there's not a Libertarian. I vote Republican when there's not a Libertarian on the ballot. I look at the Republican Party today, and I don't recognize it anymore. I see people who are bending over backwards to accommodate one man who's an albatross. He's the elephant in the room. No pun intended.
No, and I think, look, in the ad it shows as Geoff is narrating, he mentions politicians who want to look back, and he shows a picture of David Perdue and Donald Trump, and I think he's in Jeff's mind he's trying to help Brian Kemp. I think time will tell whether I'm right or Scott's right, and I hope that Kemp is helped by this. But we'll see. And I mean, Jeff's trying to build a movement. He's trying to get Republicans to see it his way, and this is an effort to do that. And we'll see if it works or not. So
the last thing I'll say about this is I'm afraid that when you look at the slate of Trump candidates in Georgia, they are not catching fire. I know we're talking a little bit about the rally this weekend, but they're not catching fire. They're not winning any of their races. Maybe Jody Heiss, maybe. That's a three-way race with an incumbent who's sort of damaged and another strong candidate that did well and made a runoff last time around. So and I haven't seen polling about it. Vernon's not going to be the congressman for District 10. He's just not. He might make a runoff, but he's not going to be the congressman. And we'll talk about him in a minute, too. But at the end of the day, what I'm afraid of is because things haven't caught fire here, that Donald Trump hates Geoff Duncan so much that if he sees this type of effort, he must respond. He's compelled to respond. And so if he sees this ad running or he hears about this ad running, I'm afraid of the resources that he will recommit and double down on here in an attempt to not lose big amongst his slate. And that's another area where I think backfires potentially a real concern.
Well, I guess, Scott, I don't know. I mean, Trump. You mentioned the rally. He's coming to Georgia. He's going to come to Georgia multiple times. He's all in because he has endorsed a slate up and down the ticket, and he's endorsed people all over the place in Georgia. It seems to me that he's already all in Georgia. I don't know that he'll spend his own money because he never spends his own money on anything. He's raised more money than the RNC, and he's hoarding it for some unknown purpose. And he never lifts a finger to help candidates financially. He just thinks he can show up and support them. So I don't know. I don't see that. I don't see that Trump can hate the Duncans and the Kemps of the world any more than he already does.
Well, Scott, he's hoarding that money for a time such as this, or for himself.
He ain't gonna spend. He never. It's a one-way ticket with this guy. It's loyalty. Loyalty must be declared to him. He will lend you his name, and he will show up at a rally, and that's all he's going to do.
Well, let's we can continue this discussion. But Scott, since you already touched on it, I do want to get we want to get to the rally because Donald Trump is hosting a rally this weekend in Georgia. Among the invited guests are Herschel Walker, David Perdue, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jody Heiss. Speaking of which, I wonder how Walker's going to justify appearing at this rally with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and skipping out on another one.
Yeah.
But
Trump changes all the rules.
Yeah, Trump changes all the rules apparently. But yeah, so he will be in the state, and God help us all. So like I said, go ahead, Buzz.
We know what's going to happen. He's going to talk. He's going to mention all those candidates for about 5 minutes, and then it's going to be an hour and a half of grievances with Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger. And yeah, he'll probably pound on Geoff Duncan too. He's going to whine and moan about how unfairly he was treated and how they wouldn't stand up for him and blah 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 blah. And it will do nothing for the candidates he's trying to help. So.
Yeah. Scott?
I'm not going to be there. I'm going to head to the mountains. I'll enjoy some time with some friends.
Not going to be there either.
I won't be there. I would love to go to one of these just to see what it's like culturally, and maybe one day I will, but this won't be the one.
I will be drinking beer in Virginia.
The slate of candidates that he has endorsed, nobody's ever heard of Patrick Witt. We talked about him because he dropped out of the congressional district to run against John King, right? That's why we know him. Nobody's ever heard of that dude. This guy, what's the guy's name? John something running for attorney general?
Yeah, I saw that story the other day.
Yeah.
Trump so you saw? I don't even remember. What's his name?
I'm sorry, Gordon? Maybe John Gordon? Hold on.
There you go. John Gordon. It's John Gordon. We struggled. The Peach Pundit podcast struggled to know who this guy was.
Yeah.
He has no shot. No shot.
I am gonna love it.
John Gordon.
I'm gonna love it when the only people who make it out of their primary races in May are Herschel Walker and Jody Heiss.
Well, I had this. I got contacted today by an NBC reporter who was asking questions about, what's it like being a Republican who is on Brian Kemp's side when there's a vendetta war against everybody Brian Kemp, right? And that was the gist of the interview. And he asked me, do you think that Trump will sweep? And I'm like, no, I think it's going to be Herschel Walker, and that's about it. Maybe Jody Heiss, maybe. But I think this slate of candidates isn't going to win. I think you get 35 points.
Burt Jones might have a chance. I think Burt has a chance.
Yeah. I forget about Burt because I've tried to mentally block the LG's race completely from my mind. Sorry, Burt. Sorry, Butch. So I forget about that race. But the bottom line is, if David Perdue can only get 35 points, and he goes, yeah, but what about Herschel Walker? It's like, Herschel Walker is a beloved Georgia figure. He won a Heisman Trophy and a national championship for the UGA Bulldogs.
Yeah,
Herschel Walker can do whatever he wants in Georgia. He's got the key to the state, baby. So you can't compare. It's like, and he goes, well, let me argue with you. I was like, what are we arguing about? Are we arguing about the quality of the candidate, or are we arguing about the Trump effect? Because The Trump effect does not apply to Herschel Walker because he's freaking Herschel Walker, right?
Right.
The Trump effect is what you're seeing with David Perdue. You took a very popular, very effective conservative governor, and you pared him down to 50% instead of 85, which is where he would have been without David Perdue being there. And
I mean, as Trump said, they sing songs about Herschel Walker. So,
right, apparently, right, Jason? You know that song.
I don't know that song, but I know when I'm drunk, I say, "Who's that coming down the tracks?" It's the mean machine in red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan. Go Dogs. Go Dogs.
I'm sure there's a second verse that incorporates Herschel Walker into that. I'm sure there is. Maybe it's the fourth verse, but it's there someplace.
Since we're talking about Donald Trump, some interesting news came across the wire today. Not that I have a wire, but I saw it on Twitter. The series of tubes that is the internet, and this has nothing to do with Georgia, but this has everything to do with Donald Trump and our neighboring state with which we have an immigration problem, and that is, my friends, the state of Alabama.
yes,
Build the wall.
yes,
I support building this wall. So Donald Trump sent out a statement March 23rd, 2022, the year of our Allah. Mo Brooks, this is quoting Donald Trump here. Mo Brooks of Alabama made a horrible mistake recently when he went quote-unquote woke and stated, referring to the 2020 presidential election scam, put that behind you, put that behind you. Despite the fact that the election was rife with fraud and irregularities. So I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish. If we forget the radical left Democrats will continue to cheat and steal elections, just look at what's happening in Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and elsewhere, but tremendous progress has been made that will help us in 2022 and 2024, and the 2020 election was rigged, and we can't let them get away with it. I love that he put cheat, the C in cheat, in the S in steal, in capital letters.
Okay. That is something.
and it's probably the first time in Mo Brooks' life he's ever been called woke.
Can we just take a moment to recognize that Donald Trump called Mo Brooks woke? Like, what are you? What?
No.
Mo Brooks?
Is that woke like the woke mental health bill, or is that woke like? I mean, what does that mean? Come on.
Was that woke like Pizzagate woke, or was that woke like Leah Thomas belongs in men's or women's sports woke? I mean, what? What
was this? Can you define a woman woke?
Oh, yes. I mean, like, what?
All right, so I've got a tweet here because there's what's interesting about this is Mo Brooks has been struggling in the polls. Katie Britt has been kicking his butt in fundraising, and that's why he's withdrawn his endorsement. It has nothing to do with wokeness, has nothing to do with Mo Brooks changing his policies. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about Donald Trump knew he was about to take a loss and pulled the rug out from under him. So here are other Trump candidates in high-profile competitive Senate and gubernatorial primaries and where they are. Mo Brooks is in third place in polling. David Perdue in a distant second. McEachern, I don't know what state that guy's in. He's in distant second. Paul Laxalt, maybe first, but probably second. Tish Baca, isn't that the lady that's running against Lisa Murkowski? Distant second. Bud, I think he's in North Carolina, second. Trump is endorsing he wants to be the winner. He wants to brag about how everything he touches wins, and it's not working anymore. It's not working.
Read the second part when I told you to stop. What was it after he called Mel Brooks woke? What was the rest of it? I had a comment I wanted to make. Two
seconds. I got to go back and find it. Mo Brooks of Alabama made a horrible mistake recently when he went woke and stated, referring to the...
Oh, I know what it went. He referred to the election as something we need to move on from, right?
Mo Brooks did, apparently. By the way,
I have heard with my own ears in person Herschel Walker say. I've heard Herschel Walker say that you need to move on from that. We need to stop talking about that and start talking about a vision for the future.
Yeah.
I've heard him say that with my own ears, and I heard him repeat that, or I've read that he's repeated that in multiple campaign-like stops with other entities, and Bluestein,
so what's the difference?
And the Jolt has reported it.
He's leading in the poll.
The difference is...
Mo Brooks is not.
The difference is a 40-point lead.
Right.
That's the difference.
But
Herschel Walker has a 40-point lead.
A couple of things I do want to point out are that Mo Brooks had in his like, it was Mo endorsed by Donald Trump Brooks in his on his Twitter account, or it was like Mo Brooks endorsed by Donald. He had it like in his name on his Twitter account.
Yes, Patrick Witt does now too, and so does John Gordon.
The thing that I love the most,
John endorsed by Trump, Gordon. Patrick endorsed by Trump, Witt.
The thing that I love the most, though, is Mo Brooks' reaction to this whole thing. He said Donald Trump is getting played by Mitch McConnell. I kid you.
That's what Mo Brooks said?
Mo Brooks? Reading directly here. Let's get this straight. Donald Trump got played. Again, President Trump has let Mitch McConnell manipulate him. Every single negative TV ad against our campaign has come from McConnell and his allies. The people trashing our campaign to President Trump's support are paid by Mitch McConnell. I wish President Trump wouldn't fall for it, but he has. So he actually does one thing he says, and not on Twitter, but in his written statement, was that Donald Trump actually asked him to help rescind the results of the 2020 election, and he said he basically told Trump, like, there's no constitutional mechanism to do that. And that is what apparently. And Scott, you're absolutely right. Mo Brooks has not changed. He just is not going to win. Or Buzz or Scott, I don't remember who said that. Mo Brooks has not changed. He's just not going to win. Trump wants to back the winner. And Katie Britt is, I believe, a former staffer for Senator Richard Shelby, who is the ranking member of the Senate Appropriations Committee committee. So that is a very powerful committee. She has obviously been around the Hill for a while, and that's what this has everything to do with is her ability to line up support in Alabama, where Mo Brooks has not been able to, mainly because he's a crackpot. But that's neither here nor there.
What's hilarious about that, Jason, if I could add, is Brooks just the other day came out and said, I will not vote for Mitch McConnell for majority leader because Donald Trump has been trying to get all of the people he endorsed to vow not to vote for Mitch so that Mitch gets tossed out as majority leader. So somehow, in Mo Brooks' crazy world, he wants McConnell gone and to further Trump's aim of getting rid of McConnell, while all the time McConnell's getting played by Trump. So,
but by the way, the election for majority leader, it's not majority leader or minority leader, Republican leader, whatever the case may be. This is not like Speaker of the House. It is not a constitutionally mandated position.
Right.
It takes a majority vote of the conference. So if you have 51, you're gonna need 26 members to support your preferred candidate. So good luck with that. You're not going to find 26 Republicans who are going to take out Mitch McConnell. But
nope.
Keep living in dream world. So Vernon Jones apparently doesn't know where his district is, or well, not his district, the district he's running for, in which he doesn't live.
Right.
So signs have been spotted for Vernon Jones 50 miles from the district border.
It gets better.
Is that right?
It gets better. So
hey, man, look, it's Trump's America. None of this matters.
I went with my daughter to a Starbucks the other day in Lawrenceville, and the next to us was an Applebee's with a giant Vernon Jones sign, endorsed by Trump, Vernon Jones for 10th Congressional District. And that's at least 15 miles outside the 10th Congressional. So I thought, hey, I'll have some fun. I posted this on Facebook. I got a message. One of the commenters said they saw one of those at the Georgia-Tennessee line, a Vernon Jones for Congress sign. I got an email from a friend who said he saw one at the Alabama-Georgia line, a Vernon Jones for Congress sign. So Vernon apparently thinks the 10th district includes the entire state of Georgia.
Well, his governor signs do look a lot like his congressional district signs. So the person seeing that may be seeing one of his old governor signs that hasn't been taken down.
I asked these folks, and nope, it was a Vernon for Congress sign.
That's crazy. They were well, I know that he has one in Madison, right? And Madison apparently is 50 miles outside the district. So good.
It does kind of make you scratch your head because look, if he wants to, I had some people, apparently some fans of Vernon, push back at me and say, well, this is a very brilliant strategy because people from the 10th district drive all over the place. But at the Alabama, I doubt many. There might be a few 10th District members who eat at the Applebee's in Lawrenceville, and I'm sure that people from the 10th District drive to Tennessee and Alabama from time to time. But it's a 1 in 1,000 shot. Why are you wasting your resources? It just makes no sense unless Vernon really doesn't give a crap and is playing all this to be loyal to Trump for some future run at something or other. I don't know.
Yeah, I literally don't care about him. He's going to lose. So the Rabun County Republican Party has a no confidence resolution in Herschel Walker for his refusal to debate. And this is becoming a serious problem because he's going to have to debate at some point in time. And look, we have seen politicians over the course of years who have primary opposition, but they have leads that are so insurmountable that they won't debate. And Herschel Walker is a candidate who has a very sizable lead. That said, generally speaking, if not always, when that happens, the candidate's an incumbent who's been around for a while and doesn't feel the need to go out and try to define his or herself on the issues because they have a record that the media can easily report on that voters tend to know.
Right.
Herschel Walker does not have that record. He's a first-time candidate running for the United States Senate against a Democratic incumbent. And there are a lot of questions about where he stands on issues facing the country, particularly look at the issues. I mean, we're staring down World War III right now, and because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we have inflation we haven't seen in 40 years. A bunch of other issues. China's a competitive threat to us. Spending is an issue. So I think primary voters have a right to know where Herschel Walker stands on these issues, but he will not debate anybody.
So the Rabun County GOP's resolution actually used football language. They actually said a football coach wouldn't allow a running back on the field unless he's had some practice. And Herschel is denying himself the opportunity to practice. And he needs to do this for both his own good and for that of the party. So I'm going to say kudos to the Rabun County GOP. That's probably one of the most reasonable resolutions I've ever heard passed by a county party. And it's for the health and well-being of the entire party. We need to see him in the debate so we can evaluate his performance. He has thus far shown himself to be gaffe-prone, almost to a Joe Biden level. And so if he's out in a friendly environment, what's it going to be like when the lights are hitting him and the heat is on and it's a heated battle where you're facing your opponent one-on-one? What's that going to be like for him? And we deserve to know. We deserve to know ahead of time.
To quote the great philosopher Allen Iverson, y'all in here talking to me about practice. Not a game.
Practice.
Not a game. Not a game. Practice.
Well, he was wrong because he needed to practice more, and so does Herschel Walker.
Well,
I just wanted to use the quote and call Allen Iverson a great philosopher. That was really it.
If Herschel Walker had reached, if Herschel Walker's debate skills were as solid as Allen Iverson's basketball skills, then yeah, we could call this practice. But Herschel needs the practice.
Right. He needs to practice.
So, Scott, you put on the agenda tonight that She Who Must Not Be Named joins the Russian propaganda machine. We actually discussed that last week. So unless there's something new I don't know about.
No, there was a new this week again. She had said some things last week, but she actually has been talking about how Ukraine's winning. We talked about that last. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just so amazed by her, I guess, and her stupidity that I wanted to keep talking about it. But go ahead. Go to the next one.
Yeah, she's disappointment. It doesn't even describe my thoughts on her.
Embarrassment. We need to have what's her name? The lady's running against her. What's her name? Jennifer Strahan or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to have her on. I'm going to work on that.
I am all for it.
I'm going to work on that.
So I got two more topics left. The first one is I have watched the Supreme Court hearings, so you don't have to.
Thank you.
And I have.
Why did you do that to yourself, Jason?
I asked myself the same question yesterday when I tweeted it out. I said, honestly, I don't know. I said, tuning in to watch the Supreme Court hearings, honestly, I don't know what I do. I don't know why I do this to myself. I got to say, top lines are that I am very impressed with her with her knowledge of the Constitution and procedure. Serving in the D.C. Circuit Court is no small feat. It is the second highest court in the land, considering the number of regulatory cases and administrative cases that it takes. And her knowledge of sentencing, being a public defender, a criminal defense lawyer. She would be the first ever public defender to serve on the court. I think that's huge. Do I think she is going to be ideological and is overall probably a progressive? Yes, I do. Do I think
clearly?
Mm-hmm. Do I think that's a bad thing overall? This is the thing I don't understand about Republicans and the way they're handling this nomination, and I say that not casting aspersions on all Republicans, but certainly some of them, is that this nomination is not like Amy Coney Barrett, who changed the foundation of the court, shifting it from 5-4 to 6-3.
Right.
She is a trade-off. You're losing Breyer and you're getting Judge Jackson, and
it's still 6-3.
It's still 6-3.
Yeah.
I do not understand. I understand some of the tough questions they've asked her, but they keep repeating the questions to a point of where it's actually starting to get really annoying. And some of the shots have been taken at her. Despite her very logical and reasonable explanations, are just getting tiresome. There are a few senators in particular who I think deserve credit for the way they've handled their questioning of her. That is Ranking Member Grassley, Senator Lee, Senator Sass, who really handled her today very well after a tough line of questioning from Ted Cruz. And also I want to throw someone who I don't usually say nice things about, and that's Senator John Kennedy, who's also been very respectful. But Senator Cruz, Senator Graham, Senator Cotton, Senator Hawley, and Senator Blackburn are really doing a disservice for a party that hopes to take back the majority. And I cannot imagine what it's like to be a black woman and sit there and answer demeaning questions about critical race theory. A mother who is answering questions about whether or not she's lenient on child porn peddlers or people who own child porn. The guidelines on this, yes, are much higher, but she was basing it off of she was basing it off recommendations from I can't remember the name of the office off the top of my head. She was basically all previous recommendations from the Sentencing Commission, and the Sentencing Commission were basically saying these need to be addressed, but it's up to Congress basically to do it. I think that there's been a ton of disrespect thrown her way. I think you save your fire and your admonition for a nominee who's going to shake the foundation of the court, and she is not that nominee.
Yeah, I think. I haven't watched any of it. I've just read news articles and recaps and some podcast discussion about it. But yeah, I think it's appropriate to have a debate with her and probe her judicial philosophy and point out, differences of opinion about her judicial philosophy that conservatives may have from hers, and elucidate that that she will likely be a progressive member of the court. But yeah, there's no need to. I think it's hard for me to believe that she would be soft on kiddie porn or any such horrible thing as that. But so.
I think what's lost in this is that the folks that you named as on the negative side of how they're behaving, and I haven't watched a single minute of this. I've seen the memes. I've seen the clips. Yeah. I saw Senator Blackburn ask her if she could give her a definition of a woman, and she said, "I'm not a biologist." That is political advertisement material for whoever the nominee is for the Republican Party the next time we're running for president of the United States. That's going to be the ad. And because it demonstrates a lack, I don't know if she said it flippantly. I don't know what the context was. I know what the question was, and I know what the exact response was. And I know nothing else. And that's the only thing that's going to be in the ad is that piece, right? And because I'm seasoned in politics, I understand that there's context that I don't have, and if I'm curious enough about it, I'll go look for it myself so I can have the context of that exchange. But that's going to be the political ad, and it shows in a encapsulation, these are the types of people that Democrats will nominate to the court.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're doing 6-3 to 5-4 or you're maintaining that 6-3 differential is not the point. We're going to lose that one of the 6, and who is going to be the person to replace that 6? And is it going to be somebody who can't even give you the definition of what a woman is? Because her answer was, "I'm not a biologist." Well, I'm not a plumber, and I can tell you what a toilet is, right? And if you're going to be on the Supreme Court of the United States, and that's the way, even if it's flippant, and I'll give her a grain of benefit of the doubt that she was being flippant. You are going to be on the highest court of the land, and you deal with definitions daily, and you cannot innately explain the difference between a man and a woman. And you say you're not a biologist. I mean, do you know what a car is? You're not a mechanic. Do you know what a car is? Can you give me a definition of an automobile? I mean, I'm sure you're going to have to deal with automobiles at some point at the Supreme Court. So that type of stuff, and maybe I'm just cynical in my time in politics, but it's fodder for the next campaign, and that's why you saw it repeated, is so that Ted Cruz can get his fundraising email, so that Senator Blackburn could get her fundraising email, so that Hawley could get his fundraising. And you see Ben Sass saying, there's a bunch of jackassery, I think was the word he used, going on around here. Yeah, and it happens. Well, Republicans are not alone in this. It happened when Amy Coney Barrett was there too.
Yeah, sure.
And poor Brett Kavanaugh getting dragged through the mud for stuff that he may or may have done 40 freaking years ago.
Yeah, so, that's some of the that's where a lot. Well, I'd say quite a bit of the anger, particularly from Senator Graham, is coming from was the way Kavanaugh was treated, and even Amy Coney Barrett to some degree. But the context around Sass's comment was about cameras being placed in the Supreme Court itself.
Yeah,
because currently there are no cameras in the Supreme Court. You can get audio on big cases, and that's otherwise you just get transcripts. And that's when
Jackson
he said
opposed it, right? Was not necessarily in favor of cameras in the Supreme Court. Did I hear that correctly?
If I recall correctly, she said it's something that should be left up to the court itself, not to Congress, because there's legislation that's been introduced in Congress, in the Senate specifically, that would require it. And Sass had said, I don't think that should be something that Article 1 mandates on Article 3 that the Supreme Court should decide itself.
Yeah.
And Judge Jackson agreed.
And Sass has also made the point repeatedly that we're all for transparency, but live broadcast of committee hearings might not have had the best outcome that we wanted. It's created that jackassery that he talks about.
Yeah, and I think Scott's got a good point here, and it pains me to say it, that Scott has a good point. But there are three members of the Senate Judiciary Committee who are possible presidential candidates, and that's Cruz, Cotton, and Hawley.
Yeah.
And they're all vying for popularity and the adoration of the Republican Party base, and how else do you get that than grilling Joe Biden, the hated Joe Biden's Supreme Court nominee?
Yeah.
But again, I say that Republicans, if you believe the exit polls, made some inroads with black voters in 2020, and that's in part because of a direct appeal to them over the situation related around the economy. It's also because of things like the First Step Act. And I'll note that Cruz voted for First Step, but it was like pulling teeth to get him to vote for it. Cotton opposed it. Hawley is no fan of criminal justice reform. Blackburn isn't either. Even though she voted for First Step in the House, she's been bad since. And I'm telling you right now, the way you're treating Judge Jackson, again, a black woman, is not going to sit well with a lot of these voters. When these are voters you need because of the shifting demographics in the country, particularly in Georgia, in Metro Atlanta being majority people of color, and the state being 51% white.
Yeah.
You need these voters, and you need to find ways to appeal to them. And I don't think this is not the way to do it. Any final thoughts, guys, before I move on to our final topic?
No, I mean we knew from the outset that she would be confirmed. Unless something really scandalous emerges, she's going to get confirmed, and she will be the first African American woman on the Supreme Court, and that's something we should all be proud of, whether we agree with her judicial philosophy or not.
So the last topic for tonight is one that I particularly don't care about, but I love throwing shade at the Falcons whenever possible.
The Falcons.
The Falcons. I can think of only 3 franchises that are worse managed than the Atlanta Falcons. That is the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Cleveland Browns.
I was going to say, if the Cleveland Browns aren't in there, you're wrong. So you nailed it.
So this week, we signed Lorenzo Carter, who's a former Georgia Bulldog standout, great linebacker, edge pass rusher. They said they wanted help with pass rushing. Great, not to throw shade at Lorenzo Carter, but he has like a career high of like 5 or 6 sacks. I don't know that he's your guy, but at least you're trying. They traded away Matt Ryan for a 3rd-round draft pick.
Third-round pick.
Mm-hmm. It's like they're not even trying. It's like,
bruh,
guys, they signed Marcus Mariota, who has not played as a starter in 2 years.
Bruh.
And I mean, you might as well just write it. Like you've seen the, I don't know if you've seen the Instagram account. It's a dude with a sign, and he just holds up a sign that has like some random funny message on it. It's like I feel like Arthur Blank needs to stand at the corner of Peachtree Street and say, "We're playing for the number 1 draft pick overall in the NFL draft in 2023," because that's what they're doing right now, and it is so blatantly obvious.
Well, all right. So let's rewind a little bit. They tried very hard to get Deshaun Watson, and that is an embarrassment to them that everybody was reporting moments before Deshaun Watson winds up in Cleveland. Everybody was reporting, and the go-to people in NFL reporting were saying he's coming to Atlanta, and all of a sudden the owner of the Browns pops up, and here's $230 million, and Deshaun Watson ran over there and snapped up that deal. So that, and I think that created a situation where the bottom dropped out, and you burn the bridges with Matt Ryan. You got to get rid of him, and the Colts were like, okay, the price has changed now, man. It's not you're not going to get what you were getting before. But I think, look, I mean, they did Matt Ryan a solid. They sent him to a team that has a chance. They didn't just dump him on some garbage basement team. They sent him to a team that needs a quarterback. He'll play with the best offensive line that he's ever played with. Okay?
Yeah. And
we'll get to see what Matt Ryan can really do. And I hope he gets a ring, honestly. I hope Matt's was a solid. He's a lot like Freddie Freeman in the fact that he's a quality individual who represented this city and his team well. There were never any scandals. Matt Ryan was never, even though he's sacked more than, I think the only quarterbacks that, there's only 2 quarterbacks in league history that have been sacked more than him. One of them's Tom Brady, and that's because Brady's been around for 1,000 years. So, I mean, he's put up with a load of crap. Except for 1 year, he really hasn't had a solid team around him, and he's put up Hall of Fame numbers. So,
yeah,
I hope he gets a ring.
Well, look, I obviously this year's Matthew Stafford is Matt Ryan. You know, he is.
Sure.
He's repeating the steps that Matthew Stafford is. The only question is, will the Atlanta sports fans be rooting for him in a Super Bowl in January?
I will be, because I won't. The Falcons are nowhere near Super Bowl ready anytime soon. So go Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, because last week when we talked, I'll admit this, that I was wrong about the Freddie Freeman situation. Freeman screwed up.
Yes,
like
he did.
He made.
Yeah.
They blew it. Because not like he's getting $1 million per year more than he would have gotten in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He's getting that extra year, but whatever he's making more, he's going to lose in taxes because he's playing in California.
Right.
You know, there's a big difference between 5.5%, which is the current Georgia income tax rate, and 12.5%, which is the current California income tax rate. So, I mean,
it'll be 13.1 when he plays his first game there, and it'll be 5.25 when he plays his first game here.
Yeah.
So you lost out, bro.
Well done.
And don't blame
Freddie.
that on Alex Anthopoulos.
No.
He was talking with your agent the whole time. Your agent didn't let you know. Fire your agent, Freddie.
Anthopoulos said they said that they had their last conversation with Freddie Freeman's agent on Saturday, and that's when they realized they weren't going to be able to land him. Yeah. And that following Monday was when they pulled the trigger on the trade for Matt Olson. So it's like you have no one to blame but yourself. And I'm curious, considering a couple of the things he has said since he got introduced with LA, how fans are going to react for the first time LA comes through to town and Freddie Freeman steps up to bat, because they're
going to cheer him.
I believe you, because he gave the team so many good years, all that. Yeah. But like he's like the spurned girlfriend. He's making it a little bit more contentious than it needs to be. It's like, this is your fault.
Yeah, there's that quote from Freddie's dad that Freddie was shocked and angry. I don't know what they're expecting. I think his agent.
If you're a Dodgers fan, are you excited?
Yeah, but the one thing going back to Matt Ryan, the one thing I did not mention was, yes, the Falcons traded him for a third-round draft pick, but they didn't eliminate the cap space.
No, yeah, they're taking the cap hit this year, and it's huge. But next year they will have a massive amount of cap space. So, the race for Bryce Young is on.
Yeah, look, that 1 in 15. I think it's 1 in 16 now. 1 in 16 record's not going to look real good, but whatever. Anyway, I think we're out of time. Scott's telling me we've been on for almost an hour and a half. So thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you download, like, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, peachpundit.com, Facebook, all the places. And just once again for our disclaimer. The views on the podcast, the Peach Pundit podcast, are our own and do not represent those for whom we may have employment or affiliations. And Scott Turner is the worst human being who's ever existed. Peace out. Have a good night. Take care.
Love you too.
We'll see you. We'll see you next week.
Next week.